Welcome back to Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump, and with me as always is Mike, the Cranky Fan.
Oh, Grump, what a weekend. What a week. I am back in cold New York. Since I've last been here, I've had 2 coaches fired. I've had all sorts of craziness, but a great weekend. My Gators beat Florida State. My Giants beat the Eagles. I got a new head football coach for Florida. It's been a good weekend, Grump.
Beating the Eagles is by far the biggest highlight of most seasons. I mean, if you're not, winning some playoff games, then beating the Eagles is probably the next biggest thing for me. I can't understate it. I mean, I went into this game somewhat pessimistic, even though I did pick the Giants to win. I just wasn't feeling really good about it. And I don't think that when I did the episode, I knew for sure the statuses of Kadarius Toney and Sterling Shepard. So
I would, yeah. I didn't get to do the show at the end of the week, and I would have predicted we would have lost. I thought, to me, we have the offense wasn't playing well. Garrett was my opinion was being slightly scapegoat for everything. It would not be the magic elixir that he was gone, and I would have thought that it's been too much in a short week to be prepared for, a front seven like Philly has, and I thought we would have lost. So I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of what I was worried about too, is that front seven for Philly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it couldn't have been a better day, right? We got to meet a whole bunch of cool people and hang out with them.
Yeah, I mean, let's give shouts out to the Talking Giants podcast. Those guys, they had a great tailgate. It was great to meet Bobby for the first time, and obviously Justin's one of our buddies from week to week, and we got to meet the entertainer. That was fantastic. I think we have a date to go watch a Knicks game, me and him together, so that'll be fun. We got Nicky Snacks, who's he's a legend.
Yeah,
a legend that grows every week. I love the guy.
Somewhere in the MetLife parking lot, there needs to be like a brick with his name on it somewhere. It just deserves to be immortalized along that curb somewhere. And we got to see Ruben too. Came over from Spain, which is awesome. And my Gigantes hat on right the hell now. So.
Ruben, thanks for coming over. I'm glad. He says it's his 4th time over here, coming over to the States to watch the Giants. He had a cool old school Giants jacket. The guy knew his stuff. Just a great, great guy. So, Ruben, when we go out to Barcelona for whatever reason we do, and hopefully in the not too distant future we will, we're going to look out for you and have a night out with you. But great to meet you.
Yeah, man. And then to top it all off, it was, I wouldn't say a decisive victory, but I mean the Giants the Giants had the lead at all points during this game. I mean, small though it may have been. And it didn't really look like Philly was... I mean, I never really truly felt too threatened after, the first quarter.
My only fear for a game like this was, a foolish mistake we could make. I didn't want to give up a pick 6 or something like that. And that's not to say that I go into every game expecting Daniel Jones to have a turnover like most of most of the media that covers the Giants or the talking heads on ESPN do. But my fear was we would play well, it'd be close, and then something would happen. I mean, we have a history with the Eagles for bad things happening at end of games, and I was just worried that something would pop. And unfortunately, nothing popped. We played a pretty clean game, relatively speaking. I mean, we had a +4 in turnovers. I can't even think of the last time we were +4 in turnovers.
I have no idea. I was trying to think of that too. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any particular game like that. But yeah, I mean, the defense played outstanding. And before we jump into our stars and farts, which spoiler alert, the entire defense gets a star from me. But worth mentioning 2 potentially serious injuries here. Adoree Jackson went out in the first quarter with what was a quad injury. He was kind of on the sidelines for a while trying to get back in the game. Didn't happen. It's not looking great for him. Darnay Holmes, I didn't know this. So he went out of the game after his interception got hit really hard by Jordan Mailata, left tackle, and ended up having to go to the hospital because he was having trouble breathing on the sideline.
Yeah.
He didn't leave the hospital till this morning. So the last that I saw was that additional tests are coming. I'm not really optimistic that we're going to see either of those guys for a little bit. It doesn't sound like it anyway. So that's pretty serious, those two guys being out. But nevertheless, those two guys were out for a large portion of the game. I mean, Jackson was out for almost the entire game. Holmes was out for about half of it. And this entire defense stepped up hard. I mean, Philadelphia scored 1 touchdown in this game. 7 points. That's it.
Yeah. A team that all of a sudden was coming kind of the hip pick, or like, are the Eagles going to make the playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you start to hear that kind of, parroting from the media sheet. But that didn't look like a playoff team to me today or yesterday.
No, not. Oh my God! Offensively, they looked like garbage.
It's this league, it's really getting more and more random every single week, and you guys are crazy if you gamble on games, because we're ready to anoint Dallas as a Super Bowl favorite, and they can't get out of their own way anymore. Philly, all of a sudden, you think is starting to turn the corner on their season, and they look awful against us. Just up and down the league, it's just you have a collection of 32 8-8 teams. It feels like.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I mean, even Tampa, went on that 2-game slide. It was very difficult to see a consistent. What was it, like the Packers? Probably fairly consistent. I don't know.
But even then, they had that week 1 where they were a complete no-show. So it's really just, this is the time of year when you get around Thanksgiving. This is when the teams make their moves, and I don't think there's anybody out there who's even has started to make that move yet. Does anybody right now, if you were to, I put a gun to your head, say what 2 teams are in the Super Bowl right now, would you be comfortable with anybody?
No, I really wouldn't. Yeah, it's crazy, but also I don't want to just put accomplishments and ineptitude up to it's a weird league, weird things happen.
No. You still have to win. I mean, it's not because the team woke up with a bad headache and they didn't feel like playing. I mean, you still have to win the game. The Giants defense is there's been some hiccups. It's not a straight line going all the way up from where they're beginning of the season. There's been some setbacks, so Tampa was a setback, but they are showing week over week improvement to be a much more cohesive unit than they were 6 games ago, for example, and it's encouraging.
I think what really happened here is that Patrick Graham exposed this Eagles offense as frauds. I think that's what it is. I mean, a lot of the Eagles' success is, Jalen Hurts kind of making things happen, things like that. When I watched this game, there was a lot of really smart things going on here. I mean, there was a lot of interesting blitzes. I mean, we had a lot of, showing the 2 A-gap linebackers in there showing pressure, and they both bail out, but then both corners come in on a blitz. A lot of really interesting stuff was done here, but mostly they did a good job of containing Jalen Hurts. I mean, there were some design runs, which are design runs, but as far as the scrambles go, he didn't really have a whole lot of success doing that. When he decided to scramble downfield, I mean, he had what he had in front of him, but him trying to scramble and buy time in the pocket and throw downfield did not really help him much at all.
A quarterback that can make things happen out of nothing is great. We've seen guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Patrick Mahomes, but when your offense consists of just relying on the quarterback to make things happen, you have big problems. You have major problems. It's when it's 3rd and 8, there's nothing there, and you can move the pocket and you can get around it, you can get a first down. That's great. When you're relying on that to be your offense, it's not going to work. And I think that's what happened in this game. Is the Eagles had no offense. They couldn't run the ball worth a lick. Guys weren't really open. It was really just whatever he can get with Jalen Hurts with his legs, and that was it. And that makes it for tough sledding for an offense when you have to rely on it so badly.
I will say, I think Philly started to find their rhythm towards the end of the game, and I think that mostly had to do with just how much time the defense was on the field in the second half versus the first half. I think they just started to get worn down a little bit.
I mean, it was so. I remember right before halftime looking at the numbers, and we were up pretty significant in time possession. It was a very fast first half. We were commenting that it was like one of the fastest, first halves, definitely top 5 in Giants history.
That or I was drunk.
We'll refer to that several more times this episode. We'll tell you later why.
Yeah. But seriously, this entire defense played without several key people, and I'm just going to throw some names out here. Jabril Peppers, in case anyone forgot. Logan Ryan didn't play this game. Blake Martinez, in case anyone forgot. And for much of this game, Adoree Jackson. They produced 4 turnovers, and probably could have had more. If you watch it, there's a lot of opportunity there, aside from just bobbled things and things like that. I mean, there's a couple where guys were going for the hit instead of the pick, etc. So
there was the overturned one. That could have been a pick.
That was at the very end with Julian Love, right?
Right.
Yeah. It kind of sucks that this defense can never play with like a significant 2-score lead or something like that, and that every time we win a game, it's always down to at least the final minute. And in some cases, the final seconds. I would just love to see this defense play at full strength, and
of course.
with. I just would have liked to have seen it once. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why we have next year. I mean, maybe we'll start the season with a roster that's as healthy as it can be, and work our way from there. But I think you kind of touched on something there. You'd like to see for once that this defense getting bailed out a little bit by an offense. And I think that was the storyline of this game, was what would we see different now that Jason Garrett has been launched and Freddie Kitchens is now with a consortium of others play calling. What difference would we see, and did it make a material difference? And this is a classic game where it's all perception. If I just showed you the box score of this game and I showed you 13 points, and I showed you 300 and something total yards, and you'd be like, fire Garrett. Well, wasn't there anymore, but it felt different.
Well, and I can get into that. So, one of the things I cautioned people to be too excited about Jason Garrett, and one of the things I said, and I don't know if I said this publicly or just to you, actually, but the only thing that really made me excited about Jason Garrett being fired was simply that I knew now for a fact that there is 0% chance he will be back next year. That much I knew, and so for that, I was happy. I didn't expect a material difference. Maybe a small difference in aggressiveness and which plays are being called, but in terms of the play design, the playbook, I mean, that's all set in stone. There's no changing that now, so I wasn't expecting much. And especially this game, I even said on the preview podcast, like, guys, this is a short week too. I mean, they played Monday night. They fired Garrett. I mean, like, even if they were prepared for this transition or whatever, the players aren't ready for this transition. They're not ready to just learn new stuff. I mean, they also just got their ass kicked. I mean, they've got some film work to do on themselves and their own execution, let alone devoting these 4 days to learning some new stuff. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
That's why I thought it was interesting that Daniel Jones went to the wristband with the plays, which he's never done before. I mean, that was part of that transition over. So, I mean, some things were a little different then. Sounds like there was some, if not terminology or just something that might have been a little tweaked this week.
I think that was more like an internal. I don't think that's like a Freddie Kitchens thing. I think it was more like, why doesn't he do this? There's no reason not to do this.
So did you see any other little subtle differences? We both agree we weren't expecting to see fundamental differences in play calling, but did you see little things like, did you notice a little quicker getting the line of scrimmage? Did you notice things like that were kind of, we haven't been doing that before, or is it just kind of largely status quo from your standpoint?
I wouldn't say it's largely status quo. I mean, again, for my expectations, it wasn't largely status quo. It's what I mostly expected, but there were changes. From an outsider's point of view, it's going to look largely status quo, and that's just how it's going to be at this point, at week 12. But the things I noticed, yes, more time at the line of scrimmage. I don't have the actual numbers on if there was more motion. I don't remember there being more pre-snap motion. Same amount of, I would say a little bit less trickeration, less gimmicky things. I mean, we did do a flea flicker to tight end screen early on in the game,
which I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, we were at first we're like, what was that? But then it was like, that's interesting, and I'm not against seeing that again in the future.
I mean, it's a creative solution for having a tight end that is not very good at blocking and an offensive line that's also not very good at blocking, because it's kind of like a double fake at being bad at blocking. It's interesting, and it actually Dan Duggan unearthed an old tweet of his where he was like a blown up play from a previous game this year where it looked like it was a flea flicker to tight end screen, but the play never really made any sense and it fell apart. And I looked at it and I was like, I kind of remember that play, and thinking to myself, like, did we just run a flea flicker to tight end screen? Like, that's the strangest thing. But yeah, there was, I would say, less trick plays. You know, we tried the end around thing. That was its usual disaster of a play. But I mean, we weren't targeting any tackles in the end zone at any point. I don't think they ran any routes. That's an improvement.
We weren't in the red zone that often either.
And that's largely status quo. But being a little bit less tongue-in-cheek, the targets were further downfield. We had a lot less targeting guys who 5 yards downfield. And if we did, they were in motion. They were moving across the field. And we saw it work with John. Yeah. And sure, if you get somebody 5 yards in, it's not that big a deal if they already have a full head of steam and can cut up field. It's obviously a very different thing. And so that was like some of the biggest stuff that I noticed was how far down the field. How about this for balance on targets here? 7 targets for Galladay, the most, should be what we've all been asking for. But then 6 for Ingram, 4 for Slayton, 2 for Ross. All of these people gained between 28 and 50 yards. So, yeah, Daniel Jones only threw for 202 yards or whatever on 19 completions. But a very balanced approach meant that there was really no one guy for Philadelphia to focus in on or clamp down on. This was what looked like a balanced route running attack. I mean, isn't that what we want when we say we have all these guys? It's to do this, right?
We don't have an offense where it's just one guy and we're going to try to feed him 15 times a game and then give scraps to everyone else. We want to utilize these weapons. We've heard all off season, the weapons this team has. Well, now let's utilize them. We're getting them healthy. We still need Kadarius Toney. We need Sterling Shepard back, but there's still plenty of options to use, and they are effective options. Now let's use them in their proper skill sets, and catching more guys in motion, more crossing routes, beyond the sticks. That's what this offense out. Don't make everything such a grind for 10 yards. It makes it for a long way to go for a touchdown and very time consuming, where maybe you break out a chunk play and you instantly split field position and things like that. Those are the things that you need to do to win a game, especially when you're playing these low-scoring slogs that are close.
I would also say if I'd have to rewatch this and specifically key in on it now, which pisses me off. So I've already rewatched the game twice in addition to seeing it live. But it felt like they utilized Evan Ingram in motion more, specifically Ingram. I mean, I don't really remember him doing a whole lot of stop routes and spot routes. You know what I'm saying? It seemed like a lot of him, and he was drawing, and this is where he becomes useful. I mean, because he doesn't have to, we know he doesn't have great hands. What he has to do is be threatening. I mean, if he gets behind defenders, he draws flags. And on a critical third down in the red zone that set up the touchdown, the only one the Giants scored, he drew a DPI in the end zone. And by the way, there was a 0% chance he was going to catch that ball.
You're right.
I mean, the pass interference, it was a legitimate call. It could have been holding either way. But, I mean, that was legitimate. But it would have been cutting it close. I mean, and he does come up with some surprising catches sometimes. But I wouldn't. I mean, it was like flipping a coin if he's going to catch that one. It was not a surefire one.
And that's one of the things that frustrates fans so much with the way they call pass interference now. It's, yeah, you may have your hands on him. You may be holding him back or something. But if the ball is uncatchable, it's not a penalty. Yeah. And I think what's happening now is I think referees are kind of forgetting that part of the rule, that just because you have your hands and you've locked his arm or something, but the ball's flying over his head or way to the right, It's not a penalty.
Yeah, and quarterbacks are totally just throwing to the DPI guy. Like that guy,
Sure.
he gets handsy. If you see him in one-on-one coverage, just throw. And
Which
so they're
is something we
throwing
should be doing
to
more.
they're throwing to not make a completion or an interception. So they're always 6-7 feet in the air. Well, obviously, but 15 feet in the air. So I don't know. I think John Ross I think was utilized pretty well under Garrett. He seems to be fairly productive for the
his role. I mean,
Yeah.
the guy is a fourth, fifth receiver. I mean,
He's like a one-trick pony. He's fast. That's it.
Right,
Just
exactly.
Go
So
out there and be fast once or twice.
yeah, we're not going to be throwing post patterns 4 times a quarter to him, but when we do, that's the guy you want. Hopefully getting beyond the secondary.
I think we're starting to see, and I'm starting to get somewhat excited for Darius Slayton being. He's not yet, so don't take this the wrong way. But I'm getting excited I'm starting to see him winning in a more dominant faction in that number 3 role. Now, he didn't really have that role in this game because no Shepard, no Tony, right? But in the last 2 games, I thought Darius Slayton, now that he's healthy, is either catching balls in good spots, not dropping them, or drawing flags. Last 2 games now, and he went 3 for 4 for 40 yards in this game. Now, I know that's not that's like number 3 numbers, right?
Yeah, I'm going to need more consistency
Of course.
out of him before I get excited. I think this is a good baby steps because I was pretty down on Slayton. I was down on him last year. I'm not a fan, but seeing the opportunity presents itself when you have Tony and you have Shepard down, he has to step up and making plays. That's encouraging.
I mean,
so I'm going to put it in the encouraging
circle
for right now.
This thought that I'm having is not based in any kind of numbers. It's just little bits of things I'm starting to see that I don't feel like I was seeing from him in the past, and didn't really feel like he was ever the number 3 option on this team. It always felt like he was being forced into a larger role than I think he's really meant for.
Yeah.
So
what's his contract story?
I can pull that up. You just gotta give me a minute. So while I'm doing that, what I'm gonna say is another thing that plays into that whole thing, and his role as the number 3 in the offense, and we're not gonna see it this year, but part of it is being able to design an offense where a quarterback has some level of time in the pocket, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we are calling those plays, whatever, but we're not calling them on a consistent basis. There's no rhythm to it when we run those plays. I mean, it's just kind of catching them off guard that we run a normal play, it feels like.
Right.
But, so his contract situation is he is still signed through next year. He is only a $1 million cap hit. He's a potential cap casualty, I guess. I mean, you're not saving much, but there's only $50K in dead money. I would think that the juice isn't worth the squeeze there unless you really needed those last bits for somebody huge. But I mean, what are the odds of that? I don't know that would happen.
For what his role is and what your rate of return is on that, I think he's safe for next year.
So what you can say then is, assuming good health, you are guaranteed Slayton, Galladay, and Tony next year, at least. Shepard is a maybe. I think he's a legit dead cap possibility.
Too early to tell, and I don't know the numbers, but are we certain Galladay's back on this team next year if they're going to just decide to slash and burn and start over?
They can't. I'll pull up the actual numbers, but I remember it would be financial suicide.
Okay.
Yeah, they would hit more money dead than if he stayed, so it's not possible.
Okay. He just seems like the type of guy that
I get it. With a new GM coming in, that's
he's
just
one of those guys like, okay, we got him, we got him. It's not going to fit what we're looking for. How do we get rid of him?
Mm-hmm. I understand that.
Yeah.
That said, the offensive line was its particularly brutal self. Now, I do not want to belabor a point, and I take no joy in repeating myself week after week about how bad the O-line is. I know I sound like a broken record, and it's not very exciting. So I spent about 15 minutes really looking at stuff, and I found that I was actually just lying to myself and trying to find a more creative answer to be more exciting, and that's not my job. My job is to be honest, and the honest truth is that this offensive line is fart-worthy, and I don't care if I have to give one to a member of this unit every single week. If it's the truth, it's the truth, and they played like crap.
Hey, man, if you got the gas, blow it out, man. If it's they're worthy of it, they're worthy of it. The one thing I do want to say to you, Grump, though, is, the issues with run blocking on this team. We know the offensive line is bad, but is it the execution of the running backs on this team making this offensive line look even worse than it actually is? And I'm pointing my fingers at Saquon Barkley a little bit.
There is a myriad of little reasons why this team can't run the ball well, and that is one of them. I mean, some of it is a bad play call, and I don't mean that on Garrett. I mean, some of that is Daniel Jones is not either afforded the liberty to or not understanding what he sees, but just looks like they're running on bad fronts sometimes. I mean, and that plays a percentage of it. This offensive line is simply bad. I mean, you have several bad players, and they have to play perfectly in harmony every single play. And
some of it's justified because it's not the starting five that they...
Sure. I mean, that's for the purposes of this discussion, it's beside the point. I'm not placing blame on a whatever, or how did we get here. It's just the reason why. You have 4 out of 5 of these offensive linemen aren't very good at run blocking. And they have to play in perfect harmony play after play, in addition to tight ends and other guys who are blocking as well. Fullbacks, they all have to work in perfect harmony.
Right.
And those guys aren't really good at blocking either. Kyle Rudolph, Caden Smith is okay. Evan Ingram is bad. I mean, you have a collection of not very good blockers right now. That is an important chunk of it. Another chunk of it is running backs dancing. Another chunk of it is just...
running backs don't block.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is that we don't really have a legit fullback, too.
I'm also looking at you, Saquon Barkley, too, as someone who can't block or won't block.
And you can see that all these reasons are there when you see the successes. Like, oh, look, they just hit the right guy this time. How about that? Or, they did just enough to get that guy. And then... oh, Booker just took it straight up and down. See how that works? When you run that play, going straight up and down is the way to go. We see all these different things as proof that there's a myriad of different reasons why this team can't run the friggin' ball. It's not just the O-line is bad. It's not just Jason Garrett can't call plays. It's not just Barkley doesn't hit a hole. It's all of those reasons. And not one is more important than the other. Just some are more factors.
Can we focus on Saquon for a couple of minutes? Because,
sure. Hit it.
We can talk to our blue in our face about the offensive line. We know that. There's going to start being some decisions made about Saquon Barkley coming up. And what do you think is going on with him? Do you think this is still just a mental block from the surgeries and, past surgeries and fear of potential future injuries, that he's not what he was before? What's going on with him?
I would be lying if I said that's 0% the chance. You know what I mean? Like, there is some level of that in him. There's some level of him still being slightly hurt. I mean, he does still have a bum ankle. I'm sure that's not feeling great. Some of it is also, and this ties into the O-line thing here, so to not be dramatic, this is a really good Philly defensive front. I mean, it's probably the best part of this entire team is that defensive front. So, I mean, some of it is that as well. Some of it is, I don't know that he belongs in what we're doing right now, and what we're doing right now is based solely on what this offensive line is capable of doing. I think that it's a group of bad run blockers, man. I mean, and we're just calling whatever running plays we can make work. And I want to say it's something different, but we have nothing from last year for Saquon Barkley, so I can't even, grade on anything, because you go back another year and it's a bad O-line again. So, I mean...
Yeah, I get that, but I'm talking about even when you see him in space a little bit, We don't see the burst we did before.
Well, I mean, he ripped off a 30-yarder in this game.
Right, but that's a 70-yarder last year or 2 years ago.
Maybe. Well, I mean, like I said, I think he still has a bum ankle, and I do think that there is a small percentage chance that those heavy cuts, that he does to break free, are.
I just see a level of indecisiveness on his part. When there's a hole before, he cut and he hit it. Now it seems there's a little more dancing there has been before, and that's not an offensive line thing. That's a him thing. And again, I don't know if that's just mental, just trying to get back to where he was before in his head, or if that's just what he's going to be going forward. Because if that's what he's going to be going forward, he's very average.
Yep.
And that's a big – it's going to be – he still thinks he's Saquon Barkley. And his agent still thinks he's Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that financially what they choose to do, I don't see a way that they're going to be able to sign him. And
I don't think there's a way they want to for that kind of money either.
I mean, people have made the point that, he's a very good John Mara guy because he's very advertisable. I mean,
is he?
Yes. He's a good-looking kid. He's splash plays, so he's highlights. He's a nice guy. I mean, really. I mean, that sounds stupid, but he's very marketable. I mean, he's a very New York guy. There's nothing to his character that is shady. And that's important this year. I mean, really think about before Eli Manning, who else do you have? You have Michael Strahan. I mean, they tried some weird stuff with Justin Tuck. He's not very flashy. Jason Pierre-Paul is not very intelligent, I want to say. He's not very...
Well, he went to USF, so...
But, I mean, he's not very... articulate, like, you know what I mean? Like, right. He's a guy. It's fine. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just saying Saquon Barkley is an articulate, good-looking, great character, and he is highlight worthy. I mean, that is...
He was.
The only thing that's missing is stats. If you had the fifth part there where he's just putting up numbers, he'd be the perfect one. But he's 4 out of 5.
The other thing he's missing is being on a winning team. That really elevates you. To be, as far as
but what are you talking about now? Are you talking about like for nationally? I mean, for John Mara to want him, he's a Giants draw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you think there are still fans who are just going to Giant games just to see him, that wouldn't go to a Giant game or wouldn't watch because he's not playing?
I don't know, and this is like an elitist thing. I can't get in the mindset of people who haven't been. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to separate that. I mean, like, if I hadn't been to a Giants game in 5-6 years or something because I moved to Thailand and I'm just back in the States and it happens to be winter and you're giving me a free ticket, I don't know. Am I excited to see Barkley rip off? Maybe. I don't know, man. It's hard to answer.
But like, if you're kind of on the fence of like, I don't know if I want to go. But if I knew, Saquon Barkley's playing today? Yeah. I'm in. I don't know if he...
I guess not. When you put it that way, I guess not.
Anymore. I don't think he's doing that anymore. Maybe like in his first couple of years, yeah, there was a definite buzz about him. But
I mean, okay, so list the guys in the NFL that would make you do that. It's hard to think of any non-quarterbacks, if I'm being honest. Just saying. I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you.
I'm sure there's some receivers out there that you're like, I really want to see him, but... I mean, like when Randy Moss was playing, he was,
but there is no Randy Moss now.
Well, Odell Beckham was. I wouldn't say that. And maybe he still is. You never know.
Maybe he might still be, but again, that's
his name more than what he's actually doing at this point.
Which is Barkley all over again, right?
No, but I mean, Beckham had a huge touchdown this past week. He had like a 60-yarder or something. Yeah. So he can still. All I'm just saying is that the box office appeal of him, I don't think is as big as it was a couple of years ago. I don't think that's gonna make any difference on overpaying to keep him.
No, well, I mean, I just don't think they're in a position to keep. Financially, I really look at it. There's no way to be honest with yourself and say that you're building a winning team and find a way to get him in a contract that his agent will agree to. I can't. I literally can't fathom it. It's too difficult.
Let's do a complete hypothetical then. Let's say the Giants have a decent cap number. They're not awash in all this extra money, but they're also not up against it. Would you give him the money? I don't think I would. I mean, again, that's not saying now in this hypothetical the Giants are, let's say they are exactly what they are now. They're probably going to end up with 6 wins probably this year. There's probably like a 6-11 team. So there's a lot to rebuild. The offensive line has to be still rebuilt. We need help we need an edge rusher. All the things the Giants need. And they have some money to play with, but not a heck of a lot. I think I might just let it play out, and if he goes somewhere else and someone wants to give him the money, go for it.
I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't do it. I don't know how I feel what the Giants would do. I don't know if that's, but like me, I wouldn't. I couldn't, because at the end of the day, I don't want to do that. I don't think I ever really want to get into a long-term second contract with a running back in general. I mean, dude's already got an injury history. I mean, what is he? He's not going to want to sign for less than 3 years, I wouldn't think. And I don't think I want to sign any veteran running back for 3 years. I just don't think I want that. I mean, at that point, if I think a running back is so seriously a need that I'm considering spending all this money, that is worth a draft pick at that point. Yeah, I mean, at that point...
There's always a Leonard Fournette who's available somehow. There's always going to be a cap casualty somewhere.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing.
Yeah, that seems like the easiest position you can grab someone of relatively good value.
But by the way, that's the whole argument for not taking a guy in the top round, to be honest with you.
Well, that when that day comes, if it's sooner or later, when we do the postmortem on Dave Gettleman, I'm sure we will spend a lot of time revisiting that.
That's news actually for the podcast. It happened. What was it, Sunday morning or Saturday? That the reports are out that Dave Gettleman is to leave at the end of the year. We said.
That's not what it said. Because I was arguing with somebody about that also. It says the reports are it's likely he won't be back, which to me is nothing. That's not even a news story. That's just that's true. That's something being leaked that they want to float out there. But yeah, because I think it was Pat Leonard who had it. Maybe? No.
That makes sense. I think it might have been because I couldn't read the tweet, so he's the only one who has me blocked.
Yeah, I think what it actually said was, it's becoming more likely that he won't be returning next year, and that's vague because it could be he retires.
That's just saying things.
Yeah, that's just
okay. So you know what that sounds like? That sounds like knows it for sure, but isn't allowed to report it. Right? Doesn't that? Like he doesn't have a confirmed second source. He's not allowed to, they're like, I'm telling you this off the record, so he can say.
I saw this on Sunday as well with the Gators hiring their new coach Billy Napier this weekend. We all knew that the Gators were going after Napier for 6 days. We knew there were negotiations. We followed the plane to Lafayette and all that stuff. Sunday morning, it came out that Napier has emerged as a serious candidate. No shit. But when the national media starts saying it, that's when it really has legs, and that was leaked by the agent or somebody to say it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very similar situation that happened here. But so that to me, that's not really news. I think we were all under that working assumption he probably won't be back next year.
Yeah, it's 100% what we said the other day. So
and I think everybody's saying that too. So our assumptions are. And that's why it made it interesting with the Garrett firing. You're trying to read the tea leaves about Judge and where does Judge fit in this whole thing, for the next GM, because we all assume Gettleman's out. So,
well, the reports are that the report mentioned a possibility of going with people in the Patriots organization or line of thinking to be more in line with Judge. The indication from the report, which may be total horseshit or may be, like we said, conjecture that they're not allowed to verify, is that Gettleman's out, Garrett is out, obviously, but Judge is staying and we're sticking with him. That was the flow of the article for thinking-wise.
And not only that we're staying with Judge, we're pushing all our chips in on Judge.
Pretty much is kind of what it sounded like.
Double down. Now, again, we're going to spend a lot of time in the offseason talking about that, but your initial thoughts of are you pushing all of your chips in, Grump, on Joe Judge right now, or are you kind of – because this sounds like a move where he's kind of dictating things, or as at least in the owner's suite making these decisions along with the owners. Are you comfortable with that based on what you've seen from? Forget, we know the record is the record, but just from an organizational standpoint and just as a guy who's in control, how are you feeling about Joe Judge?
Well, when you put it that way, and that's not the way I really thought about it, but I'm not saying I disagree either. I'm not sure. I have to think about it more. But based on the way you're saying that, I'm not super comfortable about it because it makes me think a little bit more of like the Bill O'Brien fiasco in Houston, where he just kept losing and somehow getting more control of the team.
He was falling upwards.
Yeah, I don't know what that... Well, I mean, it's not like they were always losing, right? I mean, they had a legitimate playoff team for... I mean, Deshaun Watson was playing really well at certain points. They were not always losing, but as they started to lose, he kept getting promoted. I don't know.
They were the AFC South playoff game where it's always that first Saturday at 1 o'clock of playoff games, where it's always Houston and somebody else irrelevant that you'd never see later on in the playoffs. So
I guess, but I mean, I'm not saying that's an accomplishment, but it's also... They weren't like the Giants. I mean, we haven't been to the playoffs since 2016, so it's not perfectly comparable. But also at the same time, if your phrasing is leading me to believe that John Mara is taking his hands off a little bit more, and maybe I'm not super comfortable that he's pushing his chips to Joe Judge, but maybe I'm a little bit excited that he's just maybe getting his hands off the chips. And right now, he's got a more sturdy piece at head coach than he does GM. The head coach, I don't know. I don't love it, but I don't like how much it seems like John Mara was involved with Joe. It didn't feel like Joe Judge got a real chance. Does it?
I felt like, I think he got an excellent opportunity.
Sure,
I think he also had some handcuffs assigned to him. And I think Jason Garrett was one of those sets of handcuffs.
Yeah, I think a lot of... I think you can... we don't know, obviously, who was put on him and who he brought in, but there seems to be a pattern here, and it looks like the guys that he brought in and the things that he wanted to implement seem to work. And the guys that he didn't bring in, that he still agreed to, Jason Garrett, Mark Colombo, I mean, he agreed to Dave Gettleman. He didn't really have a choice, though, did he? Those guys are all gone.
It's that mindset, and this has been my repeated theme throughout this season of the Giant way and Giant football, and it's from another era. And I think part of that might be also kind of, that's not saying that Mayer is calling down from the owner's booth and saying, hey, you should kick a field goal here instead of going for it. Right. But I think, when you get a mantra, or you get kind of a vision statement from up above, you're expected to kind of follow that vision statement and follow that mantra. And I think that part of that kind of, we just seem like an old franchise, and not in chronological age, but just we don't seem modern. And I think part of that might be what's, handcuffing him a little bit also. Now, I don't think he'll ever be, a thoroughly modern coach. I don't think he's one of these young guys coming up out of college who's going to light the world on fire with new ideas and going for it and all the analytics and everything. But he was brought in because he fit what ownership wanted in a head coach. And he's not going to stray because that's what they wanted. I know it might be a little bit of a chicken or an egg thing, but I think that's a little bit of a handcuffs on the guy.
Well, I mean, some of the handcuffs are what he came in with, right? I mean, he came in with a different philosophy entirely. I mean, I'm sorry, came into, I guess. I'm going to get my prepositions correct here. But yeah, I mean, like the staff that was assembled for him, and this is I don't want to like totally rehash this, but again,
you just said it right there. The staff that was assembled for him.
No. I mean the roster. Okay. I mean, you have Dave Gettleman's job, or any GM's job, is to get players that fit coach's system, right? So the players that were there before fit a bad defense and Pat Shurmur's offense, right? Some of that is transferable, but not all of it, especially the defense. So he's got to go in there and make a million changes, like right off the bat. He's got an offensive coordinator kind of on him. He's got no offseason with COVID. And, then he goes into this year and they blow all the money and everybody gets hurt. I don't know. So,
Even
I don't
even
think
the
he's
second-
ever been totally unhandcuffed at any point. And I'm not trying to make excuses for him because I have legitimate concerns with him as a coach, and I don't think I love. First of all, I don't think I love any one person having a serious control over the team and not some kind of collaborative effort.
Well, we don't know that that's necessarily the case.
Of course, but I mean, once you give, I don't know. I think there's a certain level of he's the boss that you can't take back. You know.
Well, yeah, I agree, because it never works when you can't put toothpaste back in the
tube. Yeah.
in the tube with something like that, and we've seen it. You know, when a coach gets fired, usually what happens is before that, if he's calling plays, they take play calling away. When they take play calling away from an offensive-minded head coach, that means, he's going to be smoked probably by the end of that season. You never see it really recover back to, remember 5 years ago when Coach X was plays were taken away from him and he's still been successful since? It's usually the first of like the snowball going down the hill.
Yeah.
Do you think, and I know we're kind of going a little off topic here, but if they decide that Gettleman is gone and they bring in a new GM, are you dying on your hill that Judge needs to stay here? But if it's just a simple question of, I have a different way I want to run this team, and I want to be GM and coach in sync.
I think the only hill I'm dying on is that Andrew Thomas needs to stay here. I'm being honest. I think there's not a whole lot that I am dead set on. I think there's some good foundation here. I think that they've made a foundation in Joe Judge's system, right? I mean, they got the right guys for Patrick Graham's defense, I think. They still just need, a pass rusher in there, maybe a middle linebacker. But they've definitely got enough pieces to be very competitive on the defensive end. Far better than any defense I can remember. And this is 2 years running of a very good defense, which means Steve Spagnuolo's years are out. He had the 1 year in 2016 and then 2007 and 2008. Those are the 2 years that he was good in the early decades. So, I mean, we're going that far back for back-to-back years of excellent defenses.
And we're not saying we're an excellent defense yet.
Yeah, but so I think that there's pieces there. I think it's probably the smart thing to do right now. You're choosing right now. It's like, we've got a good setup here. Do we like this guy enough? We can go this direction. Or we can sever right now. I mean, right now they're not fully committed to a whole lot. And there's not a whole lot to be fully committed to. I mean, there's some big contracts in there, but those guys are all deserving of those contracts. Galladay and Jackson, they got what I would consider fair contracts. Leonard Williams, I would say, is maybe playing above his contract. Maybe not.
Well, I think the big difference is really going to be, Grump, is like where that decision comes from. I think if they want to stay in-house and promote somebody up to replace, it makes kind of logical sense that Joe Judge stays, because they're just they're continuing to implement a plan that was started by Gettleman. Now, do I agree with that? No. I've been stumping for a long time that this organization needs a complete culture change. But if they bring in somebody, off the street who could be a part of the Giant family coming home, or just an outsider, and they just give the keys to the car and say, build as you will. I mean, I think that's really going to dictate what the Judge thing is. I mean, Judge is, he can go either way with a lot of different scenarios. There's no, you're straddled with this guy, or he has a track record of being good. It's not like a building. I don't think Joe Judge is a building block of an organization based on the 2 years and what we've seen from him.
Yeah. But I don't really want to belabor this now, because this is going to be like a whole off-season thing.
That's true.
And it's going to be like somewhat week to week as we learn things and don't learn things and whatever. So I don't want to sit on this too long, because we're going to talk about it a bunch. But I do want to mention two young guys who had a really good game. Xavier McKinney again. I know, whatever. He's a second-round pick. He should be playing this way. Well, I mean, he didn't really play a whole lot last year. So, he seems to be coming around pretty quick. I would say that, he had another pick Sunday that looked like he had it beat by what felt like minutes. And he almost had a couple others. He's even getting better in the run game and his tackling. I think right now savvy QBs can probably still manipulate him. But right now, he's getting the better of the average QBs in Patrick Graham's system. So, this is what we want to see from him.
He's on the edge of greatness.
Yeah, you think so?
You know something? Second round picks. It's like, oh, he's supposed to be. It's like, well,
it's a smaller hit rate.
Yeah, the odds of them being great are pretty. They're not as nearly as high, obviously, as a first round pick. And you see a lot of guys that just kind of go by the wayside. I just think this guy, again, for not playing last year, you're seeing improvement week to week to week. He's making plays. He's always around the ball. I think, another, full off season, becoming a real leader on this defense. I think he's destined for greatness. I think this guy, can be a Pro Bowl quality safety in this.
I think he might be a Pro Bowler this year. I think he's getting votes. I might be wrong about that, but I think he is.
Yeah, he might get some votes, but I think next year, I think he will be one.
Yeah. The other one I want to mention is Aaron Robinson, and I don't want to toot his horn too much because he hasn't really played a whole lot yet, so I know there's not a lot of tape on him. I know Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, but I think he deserves a star in my opinion. First of all, he had a huge fourth down pass breakup, which was fantastic. But he had to come in and then immediately take on a much larger role than had to have been anticipated. Adoree Jackson goes down. He probably shouldn't be playing on the outside more than a couple snaps. And he went out there, and I think, I have to look back, but I think he only gave up one catch in this game. And he almost caused a turnover at the end of the game. He came in here and he was tested by Nick Sirianni. I mean, they saw this guy come off the bench, and they were going to target him, and he rose to the challenge. That is really, really encouraging. Now, I'm not saying that this is who he is forever or anything like that, but it was a star-worthy game because that had all the writing on the wall for every episode we've done for the last 2 years. It was like, well, it was going well, and then this guy got hurt, and they picked on our depth. That didn't happen in this game. They picked on him, and it didn't work. So those are the two guys I wanted to shout out. They get the other stars in addition to the rest of the entire defense.
Any farts?
Just the O-line. I mean, it really came down to it's all five of them. Not one of them played a great game.
I'm going to say special teams gets a fart. Graham Gano obviously gets a fart.
That's 51 yards, but okay.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anytime I see a Knoll going wide right, I'm usually dancing up and down, but not when he's on my team. And I have zero tolerance for Graham Gano, and anytime he makes any sort of mistake ever, he's just getting a fart from me. So
I'm giving myself one because I thought it went through the uprights from my angle, so I'm the idiot cheering.
It's bad enough we have enough Eagle fans around us. I need another guy cheering.
To be fair, the person behind me was like, yeah, I thought it went in too. It was a weird angle for us, but
I'm gonna actually give us a little honorary star to the Eagle fans that were sitting around us. I thought, something.
They were all pretty. It was probably the easiest Eagle game I've ever been to.
This could have been ugly because think about the scenario into this game. Eagles are feeling themselves after the last few weeks. The Giants fire their, we're falling into the abyss on another wasted season, and they all came up. They were all over the place on the train. It could have been, a classic New York Philly bloodbath, and they were actually pretty decent around. They were, listen, if you're an away fan, you're allowed to cheer. You're allowed to sing your songs. That's not what bothers me. It's the turn around and look at me. And we didn't get any of that. So I'm going to give the guys that were around us, a little honorary star.
I mean, to be fair, there wasn't a whole lot to cheer about. But I'm not giving it an honorary star for Philly fans not acting like animals. I'll give them some claps. Thank you for being humans.
The bar is so low with Philly fan. The animals that they are, and you're all animals. I'm not excusing you for what you are just because you are on best behavior. You're all still pigs, and I can't stand you. But they showed a little civility. So
yeah. I'll give them that plastic fake sheriff star that you give an 8-year-old. That's their star. That's their honorary star.
Like the wings when you're on an airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, just like that.
Fine. They get a shiny plastic star from me. That's fine.
All right, that's enough for this. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at @football_grump. He's at the Cranky Fan. We will see you guys Friday for our preview episode against the Dolphins. Big game up.
A game we're not going to. We decided to not bother going down, I guess. But maybe a better season we would have made the road trip. We are still going to Chicago, so we will.
We chose the colder of two trips. Don't ask me.
Exactly. Well, draft picks are on the line for that game. That's
Good
more
point.
important.
All right, everyone. We will see you then. Go Giants.
Go Giants.